Previously, the training was held in the container of primarily live stage training. And then eventually you'll start learning some film skills and start working in film. It's kind of flipped on its head. You're still learning the same skills, but now it's more through this kind of live video theater medium. That's a term that I've been using. And it's been interesting to be able to tell people, like, you're still getting the baseline foundations of all your training. It's just coming through this new medium that eventually will translate to the stage when you're called back onto that.
Let it get messy. Yeah. Don't get in your head. Go. Don't think about it. Oh, you know it better than you know.
The M.F.A program is really broken down to 3 different years. The first year is much more foundational work, kind of figuring out what is the relationship that the actors have to themselves, their artistry, and kind of like getting the baseline of their voice, their physical work, their emotional relationship, and their collaboration skills set. The second year is much more focusing on the heightened part of that work. And then their third year, they're mostly in production. And it's also because we're attached to the ACT, the professional theater, because it's housed in that way, the students have the opportunity to be able to perform on the main stage as well. And so they might get cast in our professional productions.
Yeah! Hey! 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 Hey!
Hey! I had a very positive experience in the spring. I thought that shifting online personally was not the greatest difficulty that the form was presenting. I think that there are other things that the movement towards online learning requires from an actor in training and required from me that I thought were more challenging than having to do with my computer, right? But that was also with the idea that, okay, we're shutting down now, but we're gonna be back in person in the fall, right? Training will resume as we know it. And, by September, August, we will have figured this COVID-19 situation. And so the realization that that would not be the case, and that in fact we would not have an idea of when we would be able to meet in person or when the training would resume back to, the normal that we knew, that was shocking, right? And I think for myself, it took a lot of faith and a lot of patience and an investigation within me to find out the true reasons as to why I wanted to keep training.
We had to quickly pivot. And so there was a lot of, we're already kind of aware that this was a possibility. So weeks in advance, all of the faculty were asked to look at the curriculum, start asking questions of what could a distance learning look like, or what could some of the classes even look like if we could still meet in person, but maybe physical touching has to be limited and things like that. So all of the faculty were already primed to start adjusting the curriculum. And so when shelter in place did go into effect in the Bay Area, people had the foundations to pivot their curriculum.
Hearing someone's breath, feeling their heartbeat, not having a delay, touch, all of that, is so important and something that a lot of us miss. We're in hybrid right now. This is our last week of hybrid, so they've had some tutorials in person in San Francisco, but that's all 6 feet away, and so you can still see them and you're outside with them getting an Alexander tutorial where you've got your directions and stuff, but there's no touch, and there's no large groups of people getting together.
It requires an extra 10% from us all in moments where, life is occurring simultaneously. It's not like you leave your home and you go to the theater and you can forget the outside world like I usually do. And I'm in the theater. Now I'm in my room. And so it requires out of me an extra level of attention, when we rehearse, I have neighbors who live downstairs and neighbors who live upstairs. And how do we maintain this relationship as we're making art from our homes, being respectful and but also being free and not holding back, right?
because you are in your safe space, I do think there's a lot of letting go that you do. At least from my experience, I do feel somehow I'm able to step into my vulnerability on camera a little easier because I'm kind of just used to it and doing it every day. So that muscle of just like undressing is getting a workout.
Okay, this is the top of the show, Scrooge with Harp Herald Angels into the narrator's reactions. Take one.
And action. There. Now, about my money.
The idea that we still wanted the students to go through the experience of collaborating with a director, making decisions, choosing character attributes, while also like diving into like really understanding what it means to put a production on was something that we've wanted to make sure still happened. And so when it became the decision of, okay, well, we might have to transfer these online, in my head, I was already thinking like, okay, great. I can utilize some film skills knowledge that I have. I can continue to work with them to make sure that they have ownership of the text, that they're making choices. And very much the process, for the most part, was very traditional as far as we spent a week on table work, really just working on the script, their characters, analyzing the text, finding given circumstances, helping them get guided choices. I would say the one attribute that was different was really this acknowledgement of, okay, your camera is now your audience. What does that mean? What does it mean to engage with a camera? What does it mean to engage with the screen? Or what does it mean to not, both as an actor, but also as a character?
Over the summer, we were in pretty constant communication with our teachers. They had announced we're doing 3 plays, Moonman Walk, Ironbound, and the Thanksgiving play. And we would have auditions with 3 different directors. And I auditioned with Shannon Davis. She's so wonderful. And it was really cool. Right in the audition, she did a land acknowledgement. She asked all of the people in the audition room their thoughts on, a decolonized rehearsal room and creating that space. And I was like, I want to work with this woman.
Directing in a decolonized fashion in a Zoom room looks a lot like checking in, making sure everyone's on the same page, asking a lot of personal questions, creative questions, creating what we're going to do that day together based on how everyone is feeling and where we're at with the work we're doing. And then doing it, and if something doesn't work, readjusting in the moment. We're pretty much chronically wrong in theater, and that's good, right? Because if we make mistakes, then we're learning and we can figure out how to do it a more efficient or a better way, or just a different way. So really fluid and open.
So let's have Mākena continue on, and then yes, please hold that thought for the next snapper.
Cool. So Johnny, what is it you want me coming in to snap here?
Where?
Where?
Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Put me in between Johnny's hands. Oh my god.
Louise, what's the shortcut there?
So the Thanksgiving play is a comedy wrapped in a satire, a searing satire, that is about 4 white people getting together and creating a play about the origins of Thanksgiving, and hilarity ensues.
What can we do to break down the myths and the stereotypes about the first Thanksgiving in 45 minutes with 3 people? Create a revolution in their minds?
45 minutes seems kind of long.
Well, it's a play, so actually it's quite short.
But an average show at Disneyland is 20 minutes. That's what they think kids can handle.
We could consider that point of view, but I don't think that Disney
If
is
anyone knows
best
kids, it's Disneyland. It's like science to them. I know, I was the third understudy for Jasmine.
Wait, isn't she Middle Eastern?
My look is super flexible.
Oh, yeah.
Shannon was very, very gracious, and she brought in one of her friends who's a healer. And so we did smudges, and it was truly remarkable. And the way I've watched her direct and the way that she works with people, that's something I'm definitely taking from this experience.
We did a lot of explorations and exercises, and even had a medicine man come in and do some energy work with us about energy transference through time and space, and how we could be in the same space with each other without actually being in the same space with each other. And one of the ways we figured we could do that was energy disbursement, right? There's an unlimited amount of energy in the world, and we know that we can channel it. We know how electricity works, so we know that we can get energy to each other through sheer will. So that's something we practice. So because we would have this practice each day of sending energy to each other, it felt charged with that live quality still. It felt like we could really reach each other. I was, on pins and needles with them the whole time while they were live. That part felt very familiar. And it also, one of the exciting things about being in live theater is something can go wrong. And even when something goes wrong, the audience is still with you, and they want it to get fixed, or they just want it to see it happen.
And the show goes on.
I mean, we're not even a real couple,
Right here.
We don't even see each other in real life, and he's not very nice.
Hey, it's fine, I guess.
In Love and Warcraft, written by Madhuri Shekar, is a play about a college student Evie, who was played by Cassandra Hunter in our 2 productions this year. And Evie is a college student who's really, really good at Warcraft, the world of Warcraft, the online game. But she faces difficulties figuring out her own sexuality and romance and life outside the screen and outside the video games. And so in our production supported that journey, in which she meets her sweetheart and navigates what a relationship looks like and limits and boundaries of her own identity and sexuality. Fortunately for us, that was the show that was picked for us in the last spring, and we were supposed to do it on stage. But the script itself works so well for an online performance because it's essentially about gaming.
One of the things that my stage manager, Ariana Johnson, says is you're essentially in tech from day one. You're already dealing with technical elements. And it's this really interesting thing that happened when we went from rehearsal into tech, that I was like, yeah, we've kind of already teched the show. What else can be done? And then when we get to tech, it was like, oh, right, here are all these other elements that still need to come together.
Oh, and then when this scene is over, we can turn auto adjust back on.
As long, I guess what I just want to make sure is that James and Wes, you all feel comfortable like going in there and messing with those audio things in the middle of the show, like when you're off screen.
Yeah, I personally have no problem going back in there. I'll just leave myself a note.
So there's still a process, but what's kind of exciting is in the same way that like actors get used to engaging with certain set pieces or going on and off stage, getting them used to the tech elements of like, I turn my camera on now, or I need to walk in frame here, or I need to set my laptop / my prop or my costume here to pick up and engage with. That all happening during the rehearsal process helped make that transition into performance easier, because it became, I think sometimes we focus so much on the performances, only what the actors are doing on stage. And I'm constantly thinking about like, yes, but what is the moment, not just for the character, but the actual actor before they get on stage and after they get off stage.
We rehearsed for 3 weeks. We teched for about 3 days. you know, on a pace, on a real pace, and then we performed the show live 4 times this spring, in 2 weekends. Yes, in 2 consecutive weekends, and then out of those performances, ACT and Perseverance Theater are putting together a film version of the play, a recording of the live performance, and that goes into Broadway on demand.
We don't have the deets for the raid. I'm blowing all my CDs just clearing trash.
Evie, I know you do this for a living, but I know my Chai, so.
Yeah, and now you know her roommate even better.
Hey!
Rule number 1 of Warcraft, Tony, never stand in the
fire. I know.
If you knew you were attracted to a roommate, you should have just stayed away, but no, you had to be a dumbass.
Our hit points are dropping!
Because of you, she's not logging on, and we're 1 man down for the raid, and it's...
She'll log on, okay? She's mad at me. She's not gonna punish the guild.
Yeah. You're right.
Yes!
Chai, you're online.
I'm not talking to you, Muldrock. Dragnathor, Azareth, what's our status?
Okay.
Ever since I've declared to myself and the world that I was going to be an actor and that I wanted to work with that, none of my family members had ever been able to watch me. Ever. Even if I sent recordings, it's not the same thing because I can't subtitle them. I can't, you know what I mean? And so this was the first time not only my family and friends in Brazil and in Europe were able to watch this, but they were also able to participate and engage in the chat and, you know, pop flags and shout out, you know, my name and go crazy in the chats when I was on. And that's so heartwarming, so heartwarming. That's what keeps us connected. At least that's what keeps me connected to the work, right? That's reaching other people from afar. That's the work of the actor. And so for me, it had a sweet taste and a special taste to be able to do this online, and that the platform allowed for this, which, you know, if we had done it live at ACT, they wouldn't be able to catch or support me in that capacity. So yes, this platform breaks barriers and limits, and we can reach more people, and that's incredible.
There's something that happens when, I believe, for the human brain, when you're watching something live. There's this awareness that, one, anything can go wrong. And there's something kind of exciting about that. There's like a bit of adrenaline that lives inside of that. There's an entire play on Broadway about the play that goes wrong. And there's something fun and funny about that. But you're always kind of sitting there, kind of hoping nothing goes wrong. But if something does, the acrobatic of an actor who can keep the show live, keep it going, keep the story going on, keeping the audience engaged, is part of what I think we love about theater. It's that ability to watch someone truly transform for 2 hours and like bring the audience in on a journey.
We're feelers and healers, and we're sharing these narratives and these stories about other, you know, obviously other experiences that we don't get to see, and we learn and we heal together. Like we are healers, and we make people uncomfortable, and that's important. That's an important part of society.
I found that my richest experiences in theater have been the ones that are very diverse, and I don't just mean racially diverse, of course that too, but the diversity of thought. So having people from all walks of life with different levels of experiences from different places in positions of leadership, in positions of power, create this diversity and richness that teach us multiple ways of doing theater. And I think that ACT has done a really good job of reevaluating continually the way that they teach their students and the programming that they bring their students, and get as many leaders of color in there, women leaders, LGBTQI+ leaders in there, to work with the students in our multiple varied ways.
Being able to offer some hope of what can be created and how we can stay engaged in our work and still provide something for audiences is why I think training and continuing to lean into our art right now is important.
Arts and theater education right now, if that's what we're giving out to our communities, the ability to imagine, to dream, to stay alive, to have something to look forward to, I think that that's essential. We're not frontliners as the health sector of our country is, but we're on that second line. We definitely are. There's not a person that I know that hasn't consumed art throughout this entire thing. And so we need artists, and we need to keep training artists, and we need to keep supporting young artists to go out there and shape this country in a way that we want to listen to, hear, watch, feel, experience. So